Okay, so we had a camera malfunction. So on here, we're going to go ahead and continue to our next one, which is called dry brush. Okay, with dry brush, you need a dry brush. And if you don't have a dry brush, if you're just working with one brush, that's fine. So you just look up here. But you need a dry brush. The flat ones tend to work really cool for this design. I'm just going to get a little bit of paint. I'm not going to load it down. And then I'm going to make a technique going upwards. Okay, so it creates this little pattern here, or these little spikes. Okay, with the dry brush. So it looks a lot different compared to here. Now, if your dry brush marks are looking like this, okay, that means you added too much water. Okay, so they should look drier. Okay, so that's the dry brush mark. Now you do have two different types of brushes, which there's a lot of this is an angled flat brush, which it has an angle to it, and then some are more flat. But this is a flat brush. This is good for areas that are a little larger, to cover like the background areas and such. The pointed round brush is good for making lines and little small details. Okay, so here's some line designs there. Okay, so choosing the right brush for whatever type of design you're doing is very important. You can't do really tiny detailed areas with a big flat brush. Okay, our next one, we're going to do glue dots. Okay, on the glue dots, this creates a nice texture, a raised texture onto your paper, and it kind of helps protect and seal the paper. So I'm going to put just a couple, if I can get my glue working. I'm just going to put a couple glue dots onto the paper, and then I'm going to let that dry. Now, I did do glue dots on my octopus on the arms part, and it has a nice texture feel to it. And it also kind of protects the paper to where you're going to still have that light area. So if you add color on top of it, it's not going to penetrate the paper. It's going to kind of miss the glue altogether and just continue on to the paper. So this is good. You can outline, you can actually draw with the glue on the edges, or make a design on the interior of either the background or the interior part of your object. So, and it has a nice raised texture to it. Now with the glue dots, you can't paint over it until it dries. So this is something that you have to think ahead before you start your actual painting. Do I want to have glue dots? Do I want to have raised texture? Do I want to draw with the glue? If you do, you need to do that first before you even really start painting. So here's a dry example of the glue dots. You can see the paint over the glue where it leaves the glue showing. Okay? So we're going to leave the glue dots alone, let that dry. We'll come back to it either at the end of class or tomorrow, depending on if it's dry or not. You don't want to paint on it wet because it'll just smear. Okay. Our next one is we're going to use a paper towel. Okay, paper towel blot. So I'm going to just do a wet on dry painting. I'm going to use blue. And I'm going to get a little bit more water there. Get a little more pigment there, a little color. Now I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to lift some of that color. Okay? What that does, it can create like a look of the clouds, like if you were going, or it could be like different levels or colors of the ocean water. But this right here is a really easy way to create clouds with watercolor. by using a paper towel and just lifting up that color. Okay, so that's our paper towel blot. Okay, our next one is called our wax resist. Our wax resist, I'm going to draw a design with white Crayola. I want to do a type of heart shape here, and then draw some lines. You can't see it because it's white crayon on white paper. So I have a design here that you cannot see. And then once this is, you finish the Crayola part, you're going to take and you're going to pick a color. And you'll paint over that. Okay, this is called wax resist. Notice that my design is showing through the paint. The paint kind of rolls off of it. It can also build up and leave a nice texture here on the inside. Okay, just a little dotted pattern. So that is wax resist. I used wax resist on my octopus, on the head here in these white areas. Okay, because I knew I wanted those white. And if those accidentally got into a darker color by accident, it would have changed the overall look of the picture to me. So I made sure to go ahead and add a little Crayola underneath there so that it leaves it white. So this is another step on, okay, I know I need those areas white, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little white Crayola in that area that I need white, and then I can paint over it and I don't have to worry about losing my white area, because contrast is very important when you're painting. Okay, having those light areas and those dark areas, having lots of value. So I made sure to leave those white areas alone. Okay, so that's our wax resist. Now we're going to do our wet on wet with salt. Now this one's pretty cool. You really can't see the effect of it until the next day or at least a couple hours. So with wet on wet, what do we do first?
Get the thing wet.
Okay, you get the paper wet with water. So you're going to apply water to the paper. And I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use yellow. And then I'm going to use orange. So now that I have my colors down, I'm going to add a little bit more water. I'm going to pinch some salt, and I'm going to sprinkle salt, okay, on top. And then I put the remaining salt back into the little container. We don't want it everywhere, all over the floor or table. You might not see a chemical reaction right away. It will take a little bit of time to let it dry and soak up the pigment in the water as it dries. So just leave it alone. You don't touch it until it's completely dry, and then after it's dry, you will see a nice, pretty pattern. So this right here, all these different values, these little area circles on the background was all done with salt. Okay, so that's how you get that cool looking effect with it. It kind of looks like erosion, like it's eating away at the paper. So that is wet on wet with salt. You do wet on wet, and then you sprinkle salt on top. Okay, our next one, we're going to be doing rubbing alcohol drops. Okay, remember boys, we are recording. Okay, so with the rubbing alcohol drops, you're going to choose two colors, because I think the two colors look cooler than just one, but you can do whatever if you just want to do one color. I'm going to choose purple and blue. And then what you're going to do next is you take just your dropper, and you're going to drop 3 drops of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, onto your paper. Okay, you want to make sure that the watercolor is wet when you drop the alcohol drops, or it won't really do much. So, because it will soak up that pigment and dry it out, and it'll leave this nice pretty ring color, or light value. So here's an example of last class period where we had the alcohol drops were dropped on here, and it leaves a lighter value of what's behind it. Okay, what do you think you could use that for in your project?
Bubbles.
Okay, bubbles. Or you can do, you can do maybe like a jellyfish, the pattern of a jellyfish. Okay, so you can use that as a pattern for inside a fish. You can use it for bubbles. On my picture that I did, I used it for bubbles. Okay, but you can do a lot of different things with that type of technique. Okay, another one that we're going to do is called splatter. So we're going to pick, I'm going to pick another color. I'm going to pick blue. And then I'm going to load my brush up with paint. So I'm going to pick red paint. Loading my brush up with red paint. Okay, less water, more paint. And I'm going to do the splatter paint. Now with splatter paint, you want to use another, like a pencil or another paintbrush so that it's more controlled. I'm going to hit the paintbrush. I'm going to hit the pencil, and it's going to create a splatter effect. Now, the splatters that you see can vary. If the background is wet, it's going to help. It's kind of going to blend into the background. If you want more of a circle pattern, then you wait until the background is dry, and it will create a more splatter effect where it's separate, okay, and it doesn't blend together. Reason why we studied the color wheel last week, we practiced with a packet, is because we needed to review on that. When you mix certain colors together, you might get a color that you don't want, okay, like complementary colors. Okay, what happens when you mix a yellow and a purple?
It'll make brown.
Okay, it makes it brown, like it neutralizes each other. So if you have a yellow background or a purple background and you splatter wet yellow on there and both of them are wet, it might mix it and make it a brown color that you didn't want. So be careful. Listen. Be careful when you mix colors and think ahead. Okay, if I mix this color and this color, possibility of it turning, this color. So make sure that you know ahead of time. That's why you got to plan ahead. Okay, now this one, I didn't make up this technique. I just made up the name of it because I had no other idea of what to call it. So it's called a credit card swish. And look, you can go ahead and start seeing my, I don't know if you can see it well up there on the board, but you can see the nice textures that you get from the salt already on mine. Okay, so we're doing a credit card swish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have more paint on my brush than water, and I'm going to do a nice solid black line. And we're going to use our badges. Okay, because I don't think I can hand you my credit card. So you're going to use your badge, and I'm going to get on that line, and I'm going to pull that color. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. Okay, Jackson. Shh. I'm going to draw another line. And I'm going to pull that color again. Oop, pulled it a little too much. Okay, so with this technique, you create a three-dimensional shape using value by a simple process by just drawing a straight line and pulling the color over. Okay, so here's a good example right here. That's done with a credit card swish. Okay, ever seen those watercolor paintings of trees that are white and then you have a nice colorful background, the birch trees? That's what that is. Okay, that's how they create those. So what could we do in our painting that would look, what could we use that for? Coral, okay? So you can use coral under there by making that type of texture. Okay, good. All right. Another technique is stenciling. You have paper cups at your table. Stenciling is very easy. Look at the objects around you. If you have something at home that you want to bring, you can do that. But stenciling, just paint the end of this cup and you have a stamp. Okay? So now I can create some type of design out of that if I need a circle. I found this little can right here that has a cool little ridge texture. And I can make a stamp out of that as well by just rolling it, adding more paint, and keep on rolling that. So this could be maybe teeth to an animal or to, a fish. It could be part of a coral. Okay, it could be seaweed, some type of seaweed. It can be a lot of different things. Okay, so just look at the things around you that you could use as a stencil. Okay, and those are the stencils. Okay, another cool one that you can do, which you really don't see the effect until the next day, is wax paper. Okay, with the wax paper, it makes it look like stone. So you have you just do a wet on wet painting, and then you apply wrinkled wax paper on top. You let it dry completely, then you remove the wax paper, and it leaves this nice texture. Okay, so you have some texturing that you could use, and I'll come around and show you so you can see a little bit better. But you could use wax paper. You could also use saran wrap, which gives you a little bit different of a texture too. I have this up here for you to use, but I'm not going to let you do it right now. But if you want to do that, you are more than welcome to. Okay, Another process or technique is I'm going to puddle up some paint, and then I'm going to blow the paint into different directions. Okay, so what could this be used with for a under the water?
Waves.
Okay, it could be seaweed. If you have a jellyfish and it has those, the tentacles on the jellyfish, you could use that to make it look more organic and whimsical instead of actually painting. Because sometimes when you paint, you get kind of stressed and then you end up painting like straight lines for the jellyfish. Okay? And that's not what we want. We want them to be more whimsical and look more real. I think by doing it this way, you might get a better realistic look to it. Okay. Another one that we have is value. Okay. This is our last one. There are many more, but I'm only going to show you this last one, and then that's a good start. I will hang mine on the board. If you want to try one that we did not do as a class, then you can. We'll probably do that tomorrow, but we're going to go ahead and start our last one. Okay, this one's called value. I'm going to pick purple. Spin. Okay, make sure you're looking up this way. Okay, so I'm going to pick purple, and I'm going to start with my dark color, and then I'm going to start fading using more water. Using more water than paint when it gets lighter. Okay, so this is value. This is really, you need to know how to do this part right here, because this helps you make things look more three-dimensional instead of very flat like your wet on dry. Do you see the difference between this one, the wet on dry, and the value one? Do you see the difference? Okay? So we need to make sure, Sam, we need to make sure that you start looking at value within your painting. That way it makes it look a lot better than if you were to just do flat colors. Okay, so that is one thing you gotta paint some with just mainly with water. Add a tiny bit of color, and if you need a darker value, you add more paint. Okay. Another thing, a tip to do is that if you are painting on your paper and you're not sure what color you have on your brush, touch it with like maybe another scrap piece of paper or on a paper towel, and it will kind of show you what value you have on your brush. If you need it lighter, add a little more water, mix it onto a plastic palette, and then it will lighten up. Okay, so check your colors before you put them on your final paper. Use a scrap piece of paper or your napkin. You can mix the colors on your palette. Most of the palettes have lids. Use that lid to mix colors. If you need a yellow-green, get yellow and then get green and mix it. If you need a dark brown, get your brown and get your black and mix that. But you can make all the colors by using this palette right here. Okay, so be careful when you mix it. We don't want to get this too dirty because other classes are using it as well. But mix it onto the lid. If you do not have a lid, I will find something for you to use on that. Okay, do we have any questions on the techniques at all? Okay.